Welcome back to the second half of MASSP's annual Back to School Legislative Update series. In our first installment, we talked about where things stand with the budget. In this screencast, I'm going to recap any new laws taking effect this year that you'll want to be aware of. I'll also preview what could be on the horizon for the coming year. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Bob Kefchin. I'm MASSP's Director of Government Relations. If you have any questions about anything you hear today, or any other legislative questions, please don't hesitate to contact me. I'm going to start by looking at the new laws and policies you'll want to know about going into the 2019 school year. You'll be happy to hear that this year's list is lighter than the last couple of years. Split government has significantly slowed the pace of new laws coming out of both federal and state government, but there are still some things coming you'll need to be prepared for if you aren't already. The first thing I'm going to cover is the series of EDP and career education laws that passed in June 2018. Several of these requirements took effect in December of last year, though I've heard from several schools that this is the first they're hearing about them or starting to react to them. Regardless of where you are in the process, beginning this school year, all the changes are in effect. And there are some pretty big changes on the list. All students K-12 must now receive some level of career development education and career counseling. Students must have a talent portfolio, and both it and the student's education development plan must be reviewed and revised every year from 8th grade through graduation. There are also school improvement plan changes, some new work-based learning requirements, and schools are going to have to provide instruction in new things like resume writing. You can find more information on these requirements on MASSP's website by following the link at the bottom of the slide. One of the few new laws to pass so far this legislative session deals with vaping. Beginning on Labor Day, state law will now impose stiff penalties on those who furnish vaping products to minors. There are also now going to be universal, statewide penalties for minors in possession of vaping products. Hopefully this will help schools stem the increasing use of vapes and Juuls among students and on school grounds. For a full breakdown of the law and its implications for schools, you can read our article by following the link at the bottom of this slide. While some principals may already be aware of it, the Michigan Online Reporting System for child abuse and neglect may be new to others. Educators wishing to use the system will need to register and create an account. But once the initial process is finished, mandatory reporters will be able to file an online report anytime. And if you file your report online rather than by using the telephone hotline, you're no longer required to follow up with a written report, which is currently required. Principals and other educators who want more information can visit michigan.gov/mandatedreporter for more information. Beginning this school year, Michigan has a new state superintendent. Dr. Michael Rice was previously the superintendent of the Kalamazoo Public Schools and has experience from the classroom to central office. He started at the Department of Education at the beginning of August, so he's only been on the job a few weeks, and it's too early to judge how his appointment is going to affect education policy in the state. What we do know is that Dr. Rice will be reporting to a state board that is controlled 6-2 by Democrats, while working with a Republican-controlled legislature and a newly elected Democratic governor. So the politics could get interesting. The last new law I want to cover isn't really that new, but it's important to be clear on where things stand. Principals will remember that earlier this year, and at the last minute, the legislature rolled back the percentage of educator evaluations that have to be based on student growth to 25%. But that change was only for 1 year, and this year it pops back up to 40% again. There will likely be another effort to tackle this issue, but there's no good indication of how the debate will shake out. The House and Senate Education Committee chairs said last year when they passed the delay that they didn't intend to deal with this issue in isolation again. So if anything happens, expect it as part of a larger debate on educator evaluation. For now, plan for 40% growth going into the new school year, and, just like last year, have a plan to deal with a last-minute change if the legislature tweaks the system again. I want to stay on the topic of evaluation because it's a likely area for legislative action in the coming fall. Not only will there be pressure to act because of the student growth percentage, but we also now have survey data that shows our evaluation system isn't very well thought of by educators, at least compared to Tennessee. Launch Michigan surveyed 17,000 educators across the state, and the results were pretty clear. Teachers don't feel their evaluations are fair, that the evaluations help them improve, or that they are receiving professional development tailored to their needs as a result of those evaluations. You can access the full report at this link listed here. But bottom line, these survey results tell me that the debate over the state's evaluation law will continue because legislators will keep hearing about it back home from educators. And we know that they are already hearing about it back home. legislators already have bills on a variety of topics, from changing student growth to prohibiting family members from evaluating one another. And there are a lot of other ideas being kicked around that haven't yet been turned into bills. Among those is moving to 3 rating categories and eliminating the highly effective category, which was the original recommendation of the Council on Educator Effectiveness. But as I said, it's not yet clear what direction the discussion will take. Looking ahead, we also expect more debate on the Michigan Merit Curriculum in the coming months. The House has already worked on a package of bills that's currently stuck in the Ways and Means Committee. The bills started out pretty straightforwardly, but got changed quite a bit before finally ending up where they are now. I'm not going to get too deeply into the details because they're likely to change. But in short, the bills we've seen so far would do 3 things. One, called the 21st Century Skills Bill, would combine the World Language and VPAA, Visual Performing and Applied Arts, credits into a 3-credit block that students could fulfill with several options. Another would provide some additional flexibility on Algebra 2, though what form that might eventually take has yet to be determined, as it's already changed 3 times during the course of this bill's progress. And finally, a bill that would allow students to substitute OSHA workplace safety training for physical education. These are not the only bills floating around out there either. There are proposals that would add new requirements like completing the FAFSA or taking a financial literacy course in order to graduate, and at least one legislator is actively working on a complete Michigan Merit Curriculum overhaul. However this shakes out, no change is likely until the 2021 school year, and that might be ambitious given where things stand politically and the powerful interest groups engaged on this issue right now. As you'd expect, MASSP is engaged heavily and will keep members updated as things develop. And on that note, let's look ahead at what the legislature could do this fall. A bill to eliminate the work keys mandate has passed the House. This is the furthest such legislation has ever made it in the process, but don't celebrate yet, because the bill was referred to the Senate Government Operations Committee. That committee is generally where bills are sent to die. In this case, business, industry, and trade groups have lined up to support the work keys, so that likely means that it's DOA in the Senate, but it's a long session and things can happen. The Supreme Court is slated to weigh in the coming months on the lawsuit challenging the allocation of public tax dollars to private schools. MASSP is one of several litigants in the case, along with many of the other major education associations, teachers' unions, and others. For MASSP, this isn't a matter of public versus private schools or a judgment that private schools shouldn't exist or aren't valuable. From our perspective, it's a violation of the state constitution, plain and simple. Finally, I want to talk briefly about the Ways and Means Committee since I've referenced it a couple of times so far. Ways and Means is a new committee in the House. Bills coming out of the Education Committee no longer go directly to the House floor, they go to Ways and Means. The goal of this change was to give legislation a more thorough vetting, but it also means double jeopardy on all bills, good and bad. And a fair number of education bills have gotten held up there. For example, legislation that would allow school to start before Labor Day is held up there now. We discussed how merit curriculum legislation is being slowed down in that committee, and there are plenty of others. This matters for principals because you need to understand that even if you see media reports that a bill is moving, there are now even more steps between that and becoming a law. That's all from me. If you have any questions about anything you've heard today or any other legislative questions, please don't hesitate to contact me at the information on your screen.